Hello, I'm the maker and creator here at Mystic Maiden Soaps. I'm Erin. You get a picture because I absolutely hate being on camera. This is about my fourth time trying to do a voiceover, and my husband's going to be like, "What are you doing? Why do you do it so many times? The first three were fine." No, they weren't. But today we are making dish soap. Dish soap is usually made with just 100% coconut oil soap, and coconut oil, excuse me. And the reason being is because coconut is very, very drying. It's super cleansing. So if you go and you put it into soap calc, you will notice the cleansing value is off the charts, and as is the hardness value. So with that, we generally use it for laundry soap, dish soap, stain sticks, things like that. It's always the same recipe. Now, what I did differently with this one is for years I've wanted to use citric acid, but nobody ever tells you how much to use. They just go, "I have to do a negative super fat." That doesn't help me. I need a little bit more information than that. So at the end of this video, I actually have the formulation and I show you how much I used and how it's calculated, because citric acid negates some of the lye. And again, nobody tells you how much. You only need 1 to 2% citric acid per pound of oils. Well, per your recipe. So I do 2.25 pounds of oils, and I did 1.5% citric acid. It is in grams, which normally I work in ounces, but my scale doesn't go down. It doesn't do like the decimal of grams. It only does whole grams. So I did grams, and I weighed out my citric acid. I dissolved it in about half an ounce of water, maybe an ounce, and I let it sit overnight to make sure it was fully dissolved. I added it to my oils the next day and just went about making soap. It did not make my batter move any quicker or any slower. It always takes a while to bring it to at least like a thin, medium trace. I think I blended for a good almost 5 minutes. I have underblended and had to take it out of the mold an hour later or 2 hours later and blend a little bit more and then stick it in there, and about an hour later it was ready to be cut. So also with laundry soap, dish soap, you're going to cut it while it's still hot. And I mean hot. When I cut this loaf, I took an internal temperature and it was 148 degrees. So it's hot. You want to be careful. I usually soap around 119 oils. That's what this was. And my lye was between 75, 80 degrees. Now, another thing out there is everybody's saying that your lye and your oils need to be within 10 degrees of each other. They don't. I know it's a shocker, isn't it? But they don't. I played around with mine for my recipe, and this is just me. If my lye water is a lower temperature than my oils, it works just fine. It doesn't accelerate it. It doesn't slow it down. It's fine. But if that's reversed and my lye is hotter than my oils, then I tend to have a quicker trace, thicker batter. And so you just need to be mindful of that. But you don't have to be within 10 degrees of each other. So why are we adding citric acid? I can't remember if I went over this yet or not, because by now I'm rambling. So a chelator, what they do is they bind to the metals that are found in water. Right here, it's starting to gel. Gelling happens from the middle out, but you can see it there. So a chelator binds to the metals that are found in water, and that's what actually creates that soap scum. And so by adding that, it binds to it, getting rid of that soap scum. Now here I am cutting it. The reason I'm wearing gloves is because it's hotter than Hades. See, 148 degrees. So you want to, I mark mine usually, but I couldn't quite see the mark. So you'll see me add bars on top of each other. And I had to redo my cutting wire. So I was being kind of catawampus too. I do cut these to 1.5 inches thick, and they last me almost a month. So there's a little smaller piece on the end, and that's what I've been using to test. And it's been fabulous. I absolutely love it. Now you also, if you're going to bevel your edges, you want to do it at this time. You can see there are little pieces, like dust pieces that were on the table, and that's because it gets hard and your middles aren't going to necessarily be as hard as the outside. For me, the middle of my soap is still a little soft. Not soft enough to put your thumbprint in, but it's still, I can feel some give. But I know for me, if I let it go further than that, I'm not going to be able to cut it at all. So you can see that it's not all coming out when I bevel it in little curls. Parts that got really hard are more dusty, I guess is the best way to put it. Crumbly, more crumbly. And that's just the nature of dish soap. Now, if I was making laundry soap, I'd cut it, I'd leave it, and within a couple hours or the next day, I would grate it up. There you go, nice and pretty. Nice, pretty, and yeah, it's kind of plain. So right there, I was a little worried that I had lye crystals in there, but they're just air bubbles. And there you go. That fragrance does discolor to a yellow. So here's the formulation. Pause it, read it. I used 1.5%, and I just slowly added a super fat or negative super fat until I got what I needed. Thank you. Hope that helps.